Welcome to the 4th episode of Another Week in the Books. In the week of May 6th through May 12th, I talk about some of the books that I thought of while reading this week, books I'm reading this week, books I have finished this week, books that I added to my reading list this week, books that I heard or authors that I heard on podcasts I listened to this week, and where my stats are for this week. So let's get into it. I'm Alexander, the Great Reader, and I just want to mention before starting that you might hear in the background rain or a sound that you can't really identify. And I apologize in advance if that bothers you. It's just raining really hard while I'm recording this. So books that I was thinking about this week while reading, books I was reading this week is Open by Andre Agassi. It's like a biography memoir. Shout outs to Book Thinkers podcast. Really good episode on this book. So this week I finished a book called The Great Alone. And while reading this, I thought about Open by Andre Agassi. And what I thought about was the craziness of a parent that can drive like a kid crazy. Like The Great Alone, the main character's father was just crazy and just wanted to not really let her daughter have a boyfriend because of conflict he had with his father. Didn't want him to really study, wanted him to be, he was starting to build like a barricade around their home so no one can come into contact with them. Just crazy father. And Andre Agassi also had a crazy father. You know, made him practice at the middle of the night. He never did good. He never was great. Even though he was winning championships, he always saw flaws and just, driving his kid crazy. Another book while reading that same book, The Great Alone, was The Great Gatsby. And what reminded me a little is the craziness that people will do and experience and put themselves in because of love. The Great Gatsby kind of touches on that, where Gatsby creates this whole persona, this whole lifestyle around the love he has for this woman that he really wants to get back. And the same thing kind of happens in The Great Alone, where the father didn't want his daughter to be with a man that she liked, that his father was someone he disliked. So the two fathers, mainly the one on the girl's side, didn't like his father. And then it just was causing chaos, and they were sneaking around trying to cover their relationship and the times they meet. It was just causing crazy chaos, all in the name of love. And there's something to that, because the more you read, love becomes more confusing, more broad. It means so many things to so many people. People will do so many things for love, crazy things. So I try to tend not to judge people because of the crazy things they're doing because of love, because it's just something of human nature, the human experience. Another book was Shit My Dad Says while reading Dad is Fat by Jim Gaffigan, I think his name is. Man, this book was talking about a dad that is married and has kids, and I'm married and have kids, so a lot of what he was talking about and making fun of are things that I think of, and he's like, it's true, and he's making fun of our situations that, sometimes stresses us out. So same thing was like the book by Justin Halpert, Shit My Dad Says. It's like, your dad is crazy, but, he found a way to make it funny, and I read about his dad. So while reading that, I was like, wow, it's healthy, I think, to, I don't want to say make fun, but find laughter, find comedy in your dad and your mother and your kids and your spouse. The next book is Trust Me, I'm Lying while reading The Filter Bubble. The Filter Bubble was an amazing book. I'll talk about it probably next week when I finish it, or did I finish it this week? Yeah, I did finish it this week. I'll talk about it later. So Trust Me Online is by Ryan Holiday, an author I love. And he kind of brought to me the insight of why people do these headlines online to click. It's all about clicks. And if you're good, a manipulator of creating articles or content, so writers and publicists and editors will kind of savor and desire your content because it will bring clicks, and it's all about the clicks. It brought really that to light where, the click phenomenon, what is it, the word I'm looking for? Clickbait. It brought that to life, like the science and psychology, and he was doing it himself, Ryan Holiday, so he had like a insider view of it. Now, books I'm reading. I'm reading right now Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conran. This one has been a difficult read. I don't have a strong muscle when it comes to literature, especially old literature, novels. I'll be honest, I haven't been enjoying it. I'm just drilling through it just to get it under my belt, but it's a good practice. I also think that, to find the good ones, you're going to have to go through the bad ones. So for every bad one, there's two or three good ones. Another book I'm reading is Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. Existentialism is a Humanism by John Paul Sartre. This one has been interesting so far. Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. I haven't been enjoying this one too much, but someone I think highly of called Brian Callen. He goes a lot on Joe Rogan Experience podcast. He's a stand-up comedian. He used to have a podcast called Mixed Martial Arts. And he was on there on Joe Rogan. He said, this Uncle Tom's Cabin is just as important as the Holy Bible. And I've read the Bible 13 times front to back. And I think it's one of the best books I've ever read, if not the best. And so I'm like, whoa, he's putting this book pretty up there. But I guess it's not my cup of tea. Might taste that type of book. He's done that to me before, his recommendations. So far, I don't know. He recommended Blood Meridian by Conran McCarthy, I think, and that book I really didn't enjoy. Okay, so books I finished this week. The Everything Store by Brad Stone. I enjoyed this book. I use Amazon, and it's pretty cool to read about the journey, all the bad investments, all the technologies that have failed, but at the same time, all the groundbreaking new ways of running businesses like Prime and free shipping and Kindles, Amazon Web Services, even the company culture. I was learning a lot about just Jeff Bezos, about his personal life, how he grew up, about how he was as an entrepreneur, how he was as an operator. You learn a lot. It's a great book, a great business book. It kind of brought to me to life where I was thinking there are certain people that are outliers, cut from a certain cloth, and Jeff Bezos is that. So it's good to read about those type of people who just achieve massive success, but at the same time, it's good to know that, don't compete with people like that, because you could just tell by reading this book, like, this guy's not like me. He's definitely and it's important to have people, they're innovative, they're creating more efficiency, more effectiveness, making our life easier, supposedly, quotation marks on that, life is easier. Another book I finished was Thanos Redemption by Jim Starlin. This is my continuous journey of finishing the 18 books in the Infinity Gauntlet series. This one I enjoyed the beginning because it was touching on redemption, which is an important topic, especially nowadays where Twitter and all this social media, they kind of go back on your history and see that you say things and then hold you against. Like Kevin Hart right now is the one who comes to mind, and he wasn't able to do, I don't know, what was the Grammys or Oscars because of something he said years ago. So he's apologized. He said, I'm sorry. He's a different, we have as a society be able to allow people to redeem themselves. And this book talks kind of like that, where Thanos is traveling to a place that he calls a lot of harm and destruction. and they didn't allow him to redeem himself. They actually held him captive, and they were trying to use him and give him revenge. And it's understandable because I read the Bible. Apostle Paul, his story is kind of similar, where he was someone who was against the Christians. He was causing them a lot of pain and harm, and then he got a revelation, as they say. His eyes were open to the truth, and now he's trying to help them, convince them, lead them. And they're kind of all weirded out seeing this guy was trying to murder them before in their house, trying as a new person. So it's kind of like the Thanos story. But then the second half was weird. It really didn't apply much to redemption. There was this new language being spoken in the comic. Star-Lord was in there. It was very confusing. So the second half, I could have done without. The Great Alone by Kristin Hanna is another book I finished this week. Great book. It reminded me of Educated, but with a happy ending. I don't want to say happy ending, because an Educated and The Glass House is another book. It's like you kind of want his dad to something bad to happen to his dad, get murdered, get into an accident, something. Just get this dad out of these people's lives, this family's life. He's holding them back because the mother is in love and she's making the most irrational, irrelevant, illogical decisions that are just hurting her kids and holding back their kids and making her kids suffer. And you're like, get this dad out of here because his family can succeed. So this book kind of like, they murder, spoiler alert, they murdered the dad. And you're like, yeah, that should have happened a long time ago, or something like a similar. Just this dad should have been taken out. And then she goes through this horrible experience afterwards and everything. And she's always doing the right thing. But at the end, it all works out. And it's good to, like, oh, thank God it worked out, even though they kind of did some messed up things. Another book is The Barbarian Way by Erwin McManus. I am Christian, and that's why I read this, but he was on the School of Greatness podcast with Lewis House, and I really liked his philosophy, the way he approaches his faith. So I read the book, and I kind of agree with him. I am one that do not like to say I'm a Christian just because I've read the Bible, and to me, is like to be someone that is trying to follow Christ and be like Christ is like, whoa, that's a high calling. Like Paul mentions that in the Bible. Like, are you sure you want to call yourself a Christian? Are you sure you want to go through this whole thing that entails to be a Christian? And I kind of believe that. And I'm like, I hesitate because I feel like I'm not even doing the things a Christian should be doing, quote unquote. And I'm not willing to suffer in the manner of what like a Christian in my imagination after reading the Bible would be doing. And he kind of touches on that, the barbarian way, like willing to suffer, willing to take risks, willing to do the dirty things that nobody else wants to do. And I kind of feel like, yeah, that's, in my opinion, how people should approach it. But, it's my opinion. I don't want to impose, my opinion onto others. Like, I've read the Bible and this is the way it should be. Erwin McManus way. So it's just... It's a breath of fresh air. It's refreshing to hear someone else kind of see it the way I see it. Another book is Dad is Fat by Jim Gaffigan. This one was funny. It's short. It talks about the craziness and the funniness of being a father and a husband. I loved it. I was laughing out loud all through it. I can't say if you're not a father and a husband, you won't enjoy it. Maybe you're not, but this might be a very biased review. I loved the book. It was funny. I thought a lot of it was true. The Filter Bubble by Illy Parser. So on Instagram, there's a guy called Books and Beers. I think it's his... I don't know what we call that. His tag name, his username. And he talked highly about this book. He wrote a very interesting review and it led me to be like, you know what, I want to read it. And it was an amazing book. I give it 5 stars. Just because it kind of did with me what Trust Me, I'm Lying. The Filter Bubble, this book was written a long time ago and it's happening. Everything he said is like, we all live in these bubbles. Especially if you use social media a lot, you're in this bubble where the algorithms just keep giving you more and more of what you like or kind of dislike, because according to some studies or revelations, Facebook likes to show you things that you don't like because it just creates more engagement. But kind of still in your bubble, like an example would be abortion. You'll see like you don't like people, let's take the stance of you don't like people who support it. So then you'll start getting news of all this new or articles about all these new incentives and programs and ways of thinking supporting abortion. So then you start clicking on it and reading on it and commenting on it and going against it, and it keeps showing you this stuff, and you're in this bubble thinking like this abortion thing is really serious because look at all this information, look at all this content, look at all these articles, look at all these bills. So you're in this bubble and you don't really know what's going on much, but what you're liking or disliking, or whatever you're reacting to, basically. In many ways, even your Google searches, it even talks about your Google searches are specialized, It's not really what should be there, specialized and catered to you. So there's some benefits to that, Just show me what I want to see. And we could put certain trust in the algorithms. I do with the Amazon. Customers also bought algorithm. They put me that and I look at it. Or customer also liked. Interesting read. Start Something That Matters by Blake Mycoskie. So I listened to him on the Tim Ferriss podcast. I like his mindset. I like his advice. I like his story. I read this book. He's like the founder of Tom's. Great story, great motivation. He is another one that continues that trend that I've seen, that most entrepreneurs have to go on this crazy journey of taking massive risk. He was in an apartment where the landlord would come sometimes and they had to rearrange the room because he was running the business out of there. He didn't want to, and he had employees. When he had to get help wanted, people were showing up to his apartment and they were like, what? This is the job inside of your apartment? Just craziness and taking a lot of risk. But, it all worked out because he believed in what he believed in. And there's a lot of great case studies in this book that are similar to what he's doing. So he's not the only one creating a company that, matters, that helps people. It's a good cause and it's profitable because the shoe was nice. And the shoe was something that he saw in Argentina and he thought Americans, and he Americanized it a little and brought a story behind it. So it's a great book to learn about Tom's, about his entrepreneurial approach and philosophy. And also for someone who's starting a business, I would read this, because it's good to have a variation. So books I added to the reading list this week is The Remains of the Day. I added that because of the Amazon, the Everything book, the Everything Store book. Memos from the Chairman by Alan Greenspan. That is also from the Everything Store book, because at the end there's a reading list that helped Jeff Bezos build Amazon, and these are the books that helped him. Another one is The Mythical Man Month by Frederick Brooks Jr. That's also from the Everything Store book. Recommendation, Lean Thinking by James Womack, also from the Brad Stone book, The Everything Store. And then one day I was on there and they show like some new reads by certain authors. I saw that Daniel Pink, I like his books. He wrote Win. He wrote To Sell Is Human, I think it's called. He's written a lot of good books I like. So he recommended The Elephant in the Room by Tommy Tomlinson, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, and The Art of Gathering by Pariah Parker. On that same page, there was also Kristin Hanna, the one who wrote that book that I just talked about, The Great Alone. I like that book, so let's see what she's reading. And I put some on there. The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay. Ghost in the Schoolyard by Eve Ewing. Those are the two. And online, I follow someone called Ferocious Reader. They talked about a book called Eating Animals by Jonathan Foer. Put that on my reading list. Looks interesting. And lastly would be The $1 Trillion Coach by Eric Schmidt. And I put this on there because he was on the James Altucher podcast. So books and authors on podcasts this week. I was listening to The School of Greatness, and Mark Manson was a guest. He's writing a new book. He wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It was a great episode. He's a great author. He's kind of promoting his new book that comes out today or tomorrow. And it's a great episode, especially if you have any interest in reading his new book or The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. The next podcast is the James Altucher Show. Just mentioned that earlier. He had Eric Schmidt. He was the CEO of Google. He also wrote a good book that I read called How Google Works. I recommend that. But he was promoting that new book, The $1 Trillion Coach. And that's the reason I put on my reading list, because the coach sounds amazing. His philosophy sounds amazing. And he coached a lot of people like Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs and Eric Schmidt and the Google guys. So I'm excited. That's one on my reading list that I put really up there. I'm going to read this one soon. Lastly will be the Tim Ferriss Show podcast with Derek Sivers. I read his book. Don't know the title right now, but Derek Sivers has a really good book. It's small. It's about his company called CD Baby. But this guy loves reading books, and he talks a lot about books in the episode. And he actually has a online reading list that he has of all the books he's read. And he has a 10-point system. You can go on there. I haven't gone on there. Maybe I'll go on there soon. Just don't want to add to my reading list. It's big enough already. So the stats for the week are books for the month of May, I'm at 8. Pages for the month of May, I'm at 2,160. And books for the year of 2019, I'm at 82 so far. And pages for the year of 2019, I'm at 20,637. So that's it, folks. I'll catch you on the next one.